listening to the Dyslexia Mom Life podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Holcomb. You are listening to the 12 Days of Dyslexia with tips and thoughts to navigate your dyslexia journey. On the second day of dyslexia, I'm sharing with you stages of grief. So today, we are going to talk about the 5 stages of grief. And those are, the first one is denial and shock. The second one is pain and guilt. The third stage is anger and bargaining. The fourth stage is depression. And the fifth stage is acceptance. So let's dig in. So, we talked yesterday about shame and fear. And what most likely happens after that is you go into the stages of grief. And I know stages of grief are most of the times thought about when you have had a death in your family or friends or someone close to you, or you're just experiencing the stages of grief. But when you think about dyslexia and you think about parenting a child with dyslexia, when you first get that diagnosis or that identification, you really do start experiencing stages of grief. And if you're already past this point, please still listen in, because I would love for you to listen and possibly share this with someone who may need to hear it. So when you think about the stages of grief, we start with the first one, which is denial, could be shock even. And at this first stage, you're just, you just can't believe it, right? I mean, you knew kind of, but you didn't know. And now you're being told that your child has a learning difference. And you're just in denial. You're like, oh my goodness, she's so smart. How can she have a learning disability, right? And we talked about that yesterday in shame. Some people, it is hard to get over that hurdle or that thought of your child being classified as special education or a child with a disability. Believe me, I understand that. But that denial piece, sometimes you'll get stuck there for a bit. You might even be in shock because you find out it's hereditary, but you didn't realize anyone in your family was dyslexic. So you just go through all that uncertainty at the beginning. And then from there, you move into pain and guilt. You could experience physical pain for the loss of what you might consider a normal childhood for your child. You realize they are going to struggle with school. And that's painful, right? And it is going to be hard. But it doesn't mean they're doomed, right? You may even go through at this point in time some guilt, thinking, why didn't I see this sooner? Or for many of us, as you start reflecting back, I know I did this, I started thinking about, well, did I miss something? And I would think of things that would happen in preschool and kindergarten and think about, yeah, maybe that was dyslexia and I just didn't know what I was looking at. So no matter when you find out or determine your child is dyslexic, it doesn't matter what grade they're in, you're going to feel that, okay? And then from there, you may move into what they call anger and bargaining. And you may be angry. You may be angry that maybe someone in your family had dyslexia and never bothered to tell you, and your child gets identified and they're like, oh, by the way, yes, I had that happen to a mom I was working with. She said, my mother-in-law, after we found out my child was dyslexic, she said, oh, I'm dyslexic. And so the mom was really frustrated because she felt like had she known sooner, she might could have helped her child sooner. So you may go through those stages of anger. It may be anger at yourself. It could be anger at someone in your family. It could be that you're angry at the school system. And you may be angry at particular individuals that your child has worked with because you feel like they let you down and they let your child down. And then you start realizing it's a bigger system of what is broken, and you become angry because this is not new. Dyslexia has been around a while, and still what is being done about it. So you may be very angry. You may be bargaining with yourself thinking, well, if I had figured out sooner, maybe we wouldn't be where we are. The next stage is the stage of depression. And some people may not stay there very long, and others, if you have a history of depression in your family or for yourself, it may even be a stage that you have to speak with someone professionally to help you get through that piece. But it can be a stage of depression where you go back to that fear that we talked about yesterday and being really just depressed that your child is going to struggle, and how can you help them, and are you equipped to help them, and what should you be doing? And you just get very overwhelmed and you get very depressed about what's going to happen. And so you're kind of in the stage of the sky's falling, right? And the glass is half empty instead of half full. But eventually you're going to move into acceptance. And when you move into acceptance, you realize that this is where we are. Let's make a plan. Let's decide the first step and let's start working towards that. And as you get through that acceptance stage, your world's going to open back up and you're going to realize that this isn't the end of the world that it felt like at the beginning. But there's going to be all kinds of emotions that you're going to feel through these stages of grief. And the reason I included this in here is because I want you to be aware of it. And I also want you to be aware of it as you work with other moms, because many times when moms find out, even if you don't have a podcast, moms are going to ask you, especially ones that know you, about your child's journey and about advice when their child is struggling and they're not sure their child is dyslexic. And so if you see friends or family struggling with some of these stages, you can reach out and let them know they're not alone and what they're feeling is normal. Right? They should be feeling these things. And, if you didn't go through these stages, that's great. You were at a place probably already of acceptance, and maybe you knew someone in your family was dyslexic and you kind of figured your child might be. So you might not have gone through all these stages. But regardless, for some people, they do kind of get stuck in these stages of grief. And so I wanted you to be aware of those so you would know what to look for. So the next step is figuring out where you are in the stages, if you're still there, and what do you need to do next to help move yourself along. And so some of the things you may do during these stages may be, we talked about a little bit before, journaling your thoughts. It could be reaching out, if you have someone that you work with, a therapist, reaching out and having conversations. It could be listening to, a podcast like this that gives you inspiration. It could be that you just spend some time every day reflecting and just having a quiet place to think. You know how you process best, and so that's what you should do next. I want you to have a great day, and I want you to remember that you got this. I'll be back tomorrow with another tip. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, though, because I don't want you to miss any of these 12 days of dyslexia. Thanks for listening. And the best thing you can do as a thank you for me is share the episode. You can hit the share button and share it either email or text or on social with someone that might need to hear it, or just in general, hey, I'm listening to a new podcast. Maybe somebody might find it helpful. Remember, 1 in 5 are dyslexic. So there are people in your social feeds that are struggling with this that may have not spoken out or asked for help yet, or may not realize that's what the struggle is. And another option is, hey, leave a review. Leave a review for the podcast so that way other moms can find the podcast, and when they find it, they know that people are finding value. So I appreciate you. You have a great day, and I will be back tomorrow with the 3rd day of dyslexia.